Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap or the Boom Bust Channel, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host Terry, and today recapping our Black Friday victory against the Philadelphia Eagles on the road. It has been a long day. For all those that are in the community, I was 12 hours over at the state championships, and for everybody in the Chicago land area or Illinois, really. I'm sure other places in the Midwest, we got a snowstorm coming, so all the games were canceled for tomorrow because I was going to be back there again. So just be safe. So, yeah, I watched it on my phone, which wasn't ideal, but I didn't even know Amazon Prime Video had an app. And so that came in clutch. And even though I was able to watch on my phone, I was still obviously doing what I was doing. So I was actually stationed by the locker rooms most of the day. So I spent a lot of time talking with coaches and players and trying to direct them and all that stuff. So, but for the most part, I watched the game. And what I noticed, especially like on that smaller version, it more so impacted me on the defense than the offense. Like offense, I think, especially when you're watching the quarterback and the camera's always on the ball, I just felt like you could kind of see more so what was going on, whereas defense, not as clearly. So overall, I want to get back to the tape in general, but yeah, so there's that. All right, so as we've been talking about for a minute, for all the people that want cheerleading and all that good stuff, we will do that first, then you're free to leave, and then we'll have real football conversations. So, number one, if we want to just take a victory lap, pat on the back, whatever it is people want to do, Ben Johnson and his coaching staff's for real. Now, that's something that I've said before, but let's just take a moment because I'm sorry, I'm starting to feel my sore throat coming on. Now, I'm not looking forward to that. But I talked before about a lot of things with Ben Johnson and the offensive line during the bye week and all these different things. And all that's true. But one thing that I mentioned that I think really went underrated and really stood out to me today, obviously, we had a crazy rush attack today. But one thing that I talked about throughout this year, and it's, I guess, somewhat around after the bye as well, I said that you can see that the running back, whoever was responsible, really got Swift running decisively. Now, Monungai, he's a rookie. I got nothing to reference it against. But Swift, I've seen him in the pros, seen him last year with us, seen him this year, and I can tell you there's a stark difference, because when we talk about the run game, which everybody should be talking about today, like I don't even understand why you would try to make this a Caleb thing, because it was all about the run game today. But when we talk about that, it's two things. Number one, everyone is talking about how we dominated the line, blah, blah, all those things. And I'm not really going to get into it, and I'll watch the tape. But from what I saw, it was a lot of zone, as it has been. And now zone isn't really, it's not the same as power run or, gap blocking, any of that, where you just physically moving people off the ball. Because one of the matchups of the many that I didn't love was going against Jalen Carter and Davis. Now, as I said prior to the game in the community, the way I would attack it and the way I'm expected is for us to get to the perimeter, and that's exactly what we did. And so with zone, as I've talked about before, and the differences in the type of run schemes, is that with zone you have options, and that's why it's so popular. And specifically in the first half, and I'm looking forward to looking more closely at it in the second half, but specifically in the first half, a lot of those runs came off cutbacks. And I say all that to say, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not going to necessarily say we had like this power dominant run blocking team. Now, Darnell Wright is very strong, big dude. Jonah Jackson is strong, big dude. Um, Thuney, that's not really his game. Dahlman, that's not really his game. Left tackle, I mean, we've had three different left tackles so far. So when people want to say physically dominated and everything, you put up big rushing totals. People are going to make it seem like you just manhandled the person across you. That's not really what happened. I just want to make that clear. But to my original point, that is only able to happen when you have decisive running. We've seen plays, obviously everybody thinks of Barry Sanders, but we've seen plays where there's a lot of dancing and then you end up in a big run. But more times than not, that's not how that works. You have to make the defense think you're going to hit the open gap, and that's the only way that you'll be able to set up a cutback. Because if they're expecting you to dance around, they're not going to fly to the ball. And so that change in mentality, or however they coached it, has been huge in terms of the running backs being decisive with their running and getting downhill. Now, we know the success Ben Johnson has had with the Lions and their rush attack. And as I said, going into this whole era of Ben Johnson, this is a run guy. Everybody touts him as a QB guru. Everybody touts him as like, oh, he's gonna make this explosive passing game. And I think everybody that really understood the Lions, everybody that understood Ben Johnson, you knew his explosive plays, comes off of play action. Play action comes off him trying to run the ball. Now, I think, especially early in the season, we were overly heavy play action with not no run game, but without the run game to back it up. And then we saw the market improvements, and today we saw kind of the big game we had today. And so that is his scheme. So, but all that goes to the coaching. The system that's been put in has been everything, and it's been imaginative. And I believe I mentioned last year or sometime about the Lions in terms of watching the film, and I was like, again, everybody's talking about Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. I'm like, Ben Johnson is doing things in the run game that I have not seen, and that is where more so his creativity is than anything. And that has come to fruition so far. So credit, I mean, obviously the O-line, the talent improved, but getting on the same page with our blocking scheme, the running backs being more decisive, being able to see the gaps. Now, once you get in the third level, making people miss and all that, Swift was great. That's all credit to him. And then Monangai, pure power, credit to him. But in terms of the schemed up part, really getting those running backs on their tracks is what is setting up a lot of that big playability. So Ben Johnson, in terms of a hire, I guess offensively, maybe overall. Well, I will say overall, I think, and I said this actually early as well from his press conferences. Once he started talking about practice and training camp, I knew what type of coach he was. And that has really translated to at least there being a singular philosophy and idea. Now, does that mean we're the best? No, but he for sure wasn't just a guy to put in the offense. He was a guy, and early on, he wasn't even trying to call plays. If people remember, like, he wasn't trying to spend all this time with the quarterback. And, he had to get more hands-on with Caleb, but that wasn't even his, his thought process. I think he approaches it a lot like a Dan Campbell. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. I'm tired. But as far as what I learned today, because again, I'm sure people want to, go over the top ropes. I learned two things today. And that's the only two things I learned that were new. The rest of it is kind of, we've been there. Number one, I learned that this Russian attack is legit. And I asked those questions a few times where I'm like, man, I know we are way more effective than I thought. Specifically, when Swift was out and Monungai started to get more carries, and it was like, okay, Monungai is he's doing what he's supposed to do. He's downhill. Okay, he's looking good, but Swift comes back, he's still looking good. And a few times I asked, I'm just like, man, okay, is this legit? Like I said, we got much better talent on the interior. And Darnell Wright, again, another part I forgot to mention about the coaching. And he's looking like a different player. So I was like, okay, it's looking good. It's looking way more effective than, any person probably would have thought of. And I'm trying to think. I can't remember that game when Monungai was going crazy. Was that the Bengals probably? I think it was the Bengals. But anyway, and I just kept asking again because we was going against some bad defenses and, favorable matchups. And I just kept wondering. And not only with the talent, but also with the scheme. And Ben came out here, and like I said early on, he sees the game, at least from my point of view, he sees offense very similarly to the way I do. And when you got defensive tackles like that, when you got talent up the interior of the field, what you want to do, especially when you got corners that might not be as physical run stoppers, you want to get out to the edge. You want to eliminate the ability of those D tackles to just sit there or come upfield and penetrate. You want to get them moving horizontally and get them into chase mode. And then that also gets the linebackers in chase mode. And then you get extra blockers out to the secondary and you force them to have to make plays. And that's what we did a lot early on, whether it was the RPO stuff, the screen stuff, or just our wide zone and everything else. And it worked. It worked to perfection. Then, of course, once you get up in the scores and the Eagles start to give the ball up, then the defense really gets in chase mode. Then you can go misdirection and all those different things. So, but we'll look at the run game and we'll see what it was. But that today against that defense, which, I don't know if there's an elite, maybe the Broncos, I don't know. I haven't watched it. This year, I probably watched the least of the league. I watched the Bears pretty closely, but I've not had time to really watch the rest of the league. So I know the defensive numbers aren't, I think they're a little down this year, but I don't know if there's an elite defense like that, but the Eagles are still pretty up there and Jalen Carter's up there. So to be able to run on them, to be able to run on the Raiders, which I think we did a decent job of that. I'm like, okay, I think I could put a stamp on. This is something that not only we can be balanced with, but this is something that we could actually lean on. And we saw that obviously today where Ben Johnson said, hey, we're just going to lean on the run game and not really have Caleb have to throw it too much. So that's one thing I learned. The second thing I learned, the Eagles passing game is bad. Now, this is something that I've heard. Eagles are obviously defending champs. We hear a lot about A.J. Brown. Root to the good brothers, Jalen Hurts, but I've talked about him over the summer. There was a lot of debate because he won a Super Bowl, so then everybody wanted to debate him and Herbert and everybody else top 10. And so I had to tell the truth about Hurts, and it's the same thing like anything else I talk about. Oh, you're a hater, you're this and that. And so you hear these things and you don't always know. Of course, everybody's like, well, the OC sucks because they won the Super Bowl last year and it's not that easy. And then everybody was clowning A.J. Brown. And I said, A.J. Brown is approaching it with a championship mentality. People going to say he's selfish, but again, all that a win is a win stuff, not true. Because not in like maybe in terms of the standings, but not in terms of your execution. Just because you won doesn't change the issues you have. And so it comes up eventually, especially as you get into the tighter games. And now the Bears, we had a tight game with them, and Jalen Hurts was bad. He was not good. And so that is interesting. Now that's the Eagles and that's their whole discussion. That's not really my primary focus, but that is something that I had confirmed for me today and really opened up my eyes to see it because, I mean, look, one of the commenters said, hey, we're opportunistic. And sure, that's one way to look at it. We got a lot of takeaways. I think today, definitely so. But the first half, pretty much the whole time, those were unforced errors. That was just bad execution by the Eagles. And then later in the second half, we did get some turnovers and stuff that were pretty opportunistic. But overall, man, that's one thing that I learned. But that wasn't about us. So, yeah, that's it. And then, like, getting deeper into it, I'm not going to spend too much time. I'm really tired. But I saw a lot of the same things that I've seen before, but the Eagles really pulled the Bears here, except they lost the game. And that decision to go for it on 2 at the end of that made no sense to me. And I am the last person to be like, oh, this timeout, you should have did the, game management. But that to me just didn't make any sense because the math wasn't mathing. And so, anyway, they definitely they pulled the Bears, and on top of it, the truth is, going back to the Eagles pass offense, the numbers told you, they punt a lot, they don't get as many first downs, they don't have explosive plays, and it's not like last year at all. They're pretty low in the league and all that. And so, but it's so much talent, and we've seen the Eagles do this before where they'll just figure it out. But to watch it live, that's why I was like, man, yeah, they're pulling the Bears. We went up, we scored first, but still, you got way more talent on offense than we do on defense. You cannot waste those possessions like that. Now, when they needed to score, they did score fast, but they wasted way too many drives in between that. And then on top of that, Hurts turned the ball over, which just made it even worse. So it was really sloppy by the Eagles, but the Bears, similar. I don't know. There was a lot of people slipping on the field, so I'm not sure what that was. Definitely, you could say there were some times where people slipped, and maybe that was the issue. But Caleb missed a lot of passes. Not a lot because he didn't throw a lot, but he threw a good amount, but he missed way too many passes. And that, again, Caleb, his volume was reduced because of what we was doing with the run game, and he still, with what he was given, it's the exact same thing every week. And the run game overproduced, and that carried us, obviously. Defensively, and again, they played it exactly like I not said they would, but how I would have approached it in terms of before the game. Now, they still gave up some opportunities, but for the most part, they said, okay, Jalen, you're going to have to beat us. And he did not. And so, obviously we got Kyler back. We got Jalen back. Apparently Edmonds is on IR, so we were out all our linebackers, which was scary. But again, I mean, just a lot of crowd in the box. People think too high means you got a light box, but if you're playing quarters, if you're playing a tight, if your safeties are tight down to the line, that's still good run support. So either way, gave a lot of help. And CJ GJ, man, what's his name? Dennis Allen really knows how to use him. And kind of like I said, now we still, the secondary was healthy, but we had the linebackers there, so that made it a little different. But kind of like I said, once Kyler's there in the slot, we could use CJ GJ more of a dime or dime linebacker. And so he was a good piece to move around too. But overall, I mean, I thought the defense was, kind of similar to what they've been doing. So, um, it will be interesting going forward, man. I mean, maybe this is not the season where there's a dominant team you can beat, maybe outside of the Rams. And so I'm not going to sit here and hold the Bears to that standard to say, hey, you got to go out against somebody on complete fire. The Eagles are a quality team. They defending champs. They didn't. They had injuries, but not crazy injuries. Obviously, we got injuries, and yeah, I just think the difference in this game was that we had a game we won in a different way. I'll say that. Because it didn't come down to the last drive for us, not necessarily. And then also we had big run games, but we didn't have a run game like this. I mean, you talking about something that hasn't been done in I think almost a decade or something like that, maybe a little over a decade. I mean, to have two guys going 120 plus, like that was not on the bingo card, as they say. So that, like I said, that I already said that was something that was new that I learned today, but that was an overproduction, and I think the rest of it was like pretty similar, but we showed that we could win in a different type of way. So I think that was definitely a thumbs up. But this is a game we're gonna have to get to the film again. Like I said, for me, it was much more of the Eagles offense not executing, which if they were putting up big numbers, if you had no drama going on and they came out like this, then you might have an argument about the Bears defense. But you're not telling me with no starting linebackers, with your third string corner in still, that the Bears came out and just pushed the Eagles around. That's not what happened. I mean, I get it, you're a Bears fan, but come on, watch the game. The Eagles shot themselves in the foot most of the time, but we'll get to the film and we'll check it out. So that's it for me, man. Like I said, stay safe. If you're in the area getting a snowstorm, share it around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe. Remember, stay up and bear down.